My name is Christian Basel. Years ago, I had an idea. I got myself a TARDIS. Took it to new places, met a lot of new people, took some great pictures, and talked Doctor Who. From Krypton Radio and the creators of the Hanging With web show, this is the legend of the Traveling Tardis. Join me on my latest adventures and become part of the legend. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show. Wherever you're listening to us, on iHeartRadio, on iTunes, on Spotify, Spreaker, Krypton Radio, we want to thank you for joining us every week on this episode as we enter the holidays here at the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. I'm with our fellow panelists, Artiste Melanie Dean, Dr. Freedom himself, Brian Burress. I'm with the man who knows a rat hole so well, Dave Chapman, and our favorite Blue Man actor, Simon Fisher-Becker. But that's not who I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. They're all here to have some fun with our guest, a very wild time, a very Irish wild time. Hint, 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 hint. We have the lovely companion of the Third Doctor, Jon Pertwee, Miss Katy Manning, on the show. How you doing, Katy?
I'm fine, thanks, lovey, after what I've just been through to get through to you lot, honestly. I've been asked to identify upside-down Chinese figures. I've been asked my age, my birthplace. And trying to tell them that I travel around on the number 22 bus wasn't easy. Hello, darlings.
Hello.
Oh, it's so wonderful, Skype, isn't it?
Yes. Let me bring the audience up to speed on what's going on. Katy has been very gracious to use Skype to talk to us today. However, she has fallen victim of what we call the Skype updates, and I think everybody knows what that is at this point, how long it takes. But Katy had to do the identifying thing, and if anybody knows what I'm talking about, they have those 9 little blocks of pictures, and you have to identify like the street light or something like that. And Katy, I don't know if they know your condition over at Skype, but I know I totally appreciate what you have done to get onto the show.
I wanted to say to them, darling, I don't hold a driving license, which has saved an awful lot of lives. And you're asking me to identify things that I've never seen in my life before close up. I don't even know my own children sometimes. I have to tell you, when my daughter got married, I don't know, I don't do years, but sort of fairly recently, she's got a baby now. And I went to get everything ready at the wedding venue. And I'm sort of doing the flowers because I did all the bridesmaids' dresses. I sewed, I did the bouquet, all that. And I went in and there was a whole bunch of people. And I went, oh, hello, darling. Lovely to meet you. Hello, darling. I said, hello, lovely to meet you. She said, Mummy, I'm your daughter. And that goes right back to when they were tiny at school. So I'm surprised they're not severely damaged, because I tried to take the wrong children home from school once. And I grabbed hold of these 2 little blonde creatures. I thought, that'll do. And I'm running out to get into a taxi because I'm really late for rehearsals. And I heard this woman going, excuse me. And I went, what? She said, those are my children. Mind you, when they were teenagers, I wish I'd taken the other children. But there you go. That's fine. Anyway, so that's how hard it is for me when on all those little dots, and then they say, oh, you filled it in wrongly, and honestly, you lose the will to live within seconds. And I haven't got that much, how many years have I got in front of me? I thought, am I still going to be alive by the time I filled in all this Skype stuff? Anyway, enough. Lovely Simon Fisher-Becker, who's sitting there saying, I told you not to interview her. I did warn you this was not a good idea, and I'd much rather be having a nap now.
Oh, so how true. But I have the same thing, I can't see some of the images, and sometimes they do it in flowery writing as well, and you're supposed to notice that it is a capital and not a lowercase, so that and you can't always tell.
Well, listen, I feel like a lowercase now. I've finished filling that in.
Oh, it's quite all right. I mean, I with my contacts, I see pretty well, and I still mess up those things. I mean, it's ridiculous what the hoops that they make you jump through just to identify who you are. And you were joking, it's like at one point I think Skype convinced me I wasn't Katy Manning. I think Skype's
Well,
done
no,
the same thing to me.
absolutely. You know, I mean, I wrote a whole play about visual situations because, you know, people think that I'm looking at them and that I can see them because I was born this way. So I know how to look at people and look like I can see them, even though I can't, if you see what I mean. But I'm babbling now. But also, you know, when you sign the back of your credit card, well, they give you a space that, you know, even an ant with a big ego couldn't get a signature in there. And so consequently, somebody's put a sign up. 2 plus 2, that's 4. Are you still checking on me?
Katie, that's how, it's just a reminder of our commercial breaks. Melanie will do that. It's okay. We're also on TV as well. We're video recording. So, I mean, you're fine.
Ignore me.
You were saying...
You're looking for fingers.
I'm looking for fingers. I've got numbers coming up in front of me. This is lovely. It's like going back to the 70s, darling. I'm seeing all these wonderful visuals. I've got 4 pictures of 3 gorgeous men, 1 delight. Oh, no, there's a little chap right up in the corner, right next to my name. Hello, sweetie.
I don't know which one of us is up there, but hello.
Well, he's only in a little tiny round bit, like a contact lens.
Oh.
Oh, it could have been
Is that you? Oh, I see. Oh, and I can see Jody looking over your shoulder.
Oh, that's me.
This is my eye test for the year, you know.
Yes.
Well, I know exactly what that's like, because without these glasses, I can get maybe to about here, and then things really get fuzzy. I can barely tell how many fingers I've got up at that point. You know?
But the lovely thing is, darling, doesn't everything and everybody look beautiful?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You know, we're so lucky not to have all those hard edges. I've never seen anything ugly in my life. No, I mean, truly.
3 a.m.
It just makes everything, I guess that makes you feel much happier because everything looks so lovely.
So, Katy, can I just ask you? You've touched on your myopic status. How generally do you cope with that in life and things generally? And have you been discriminated against it by?
When you're born a certain way, you
Yes.
know, if things come to you later in life, then it's much harder. But when you're born, you know, I've got like really amazing hearing, which is why voices always came so easy. Voices are my friends. You also get very good at blurs, you know, what blurs are. And you know, at night it's much harder for me when it's dark because I also have a great sense of color. And you know, I draw and I make all these amazing things, and I can sew in the dark because it goes from my head to my hands. And I know that sounds really weird, but you know I do all that stuff, Simon.
Yes, yeah, and I
it's really intricate what I do.
Yeah, I understand at a certain level because I play the piano, and if I'm trying to read the music, I can't read the music and see where my hand's going, and I find my hands go to the keys automatically as long as I can read the note.
Yes, because you have that muscle memory.
A really good sense of yes, and I got a really good sense of smell as well. And yes, so if I come up sniffing, you'll know I'm trying to identify you. It's not a good look.
Oh, that's going to
not
be fun at a
anybody
convention.
ever really wants to see. And that's why I have such huge nostrils, I think. I was created with this extra sense. But do you know, I don't really ever want that. I am having an operation, but it's going to take a lot longer. It's not one of those where they just, you know, put lenses in your eyes, because that's not going to help. This is a new thing they're doing. It'll take about 8 days. And I said to the surgeon, I said, I don't want to see that well. And he looked at me and he said, don't worry, you won't.
Okay.
And he said, but I do have to say, you're the first person that's ever said this to me. I said, darling, I love my world and I don't want to change it. I get around, I go to airport, I ask, I talk to people, you know, I get on wrong buses, I do all sorts of things, but I always get where I'm going. And that's just through years and years of experience. Discriminated, well, when I was younger, a lot younger, boys used to tease me because my glasses used to have to be like sticky taped behind my ears and they still are. They're made of glass and they have to be hand ground. And when we played Postman's Knock, boys wouldn't kiss me because I had glasses. So I thought, okay, watch me. So I took them off. And my girlfriend and I were always sort of walking around. I couldn't see anything. I never knew. If I wanted to know what somebody looked like, I had to drop something on the floor. I wrote about this in the play. I dropped something on the floor, and when I picked it up, I'd come up so close I could see what they looked like. Right. And so, you know, you just learn to live the way you are and enjoy it and be grateful for everything I do have.
To be honest, that's my viewpoint as well. I treat things that as these are the cards that are dealt. Yeah. And I ask just for a little bit of consideration, that's all, but never demand. But life's fun. Life's fun. And Katy, having watched you on Doctor Who and then become a really good friend with you on the circuit, it's such a pleasure. And I really enjoy how you absolutely do go up to people, give them a big hug, and you make everybody feel as if they're your best friend, and that's absolutely to be cherished.
Well, they are. And you know what, I really, really deeply care. Every, you know, fan has a story to tell, and I want to hear their stories. And some of them have had so much trauma and so many things go on in their lives. And if you can make a tiny bit of difference, which the show often did, you know, people would be able to escape into this extraordinary show. And I think we also have to bear in mind the importance of fans, because without them, there wouldn't be a show. They're very, very important people. But also, you're given this extraordinary opportunity to help people, to make their lives a little better, to show them that they're beautiful and that they're loved. And, you know, I have several people who suffer all sorts of different depressions and things like that. And I won't get sort of heavily into it, but I do actually help them as much as I can with direct messaging, and I meet up with a lot of them. And then the very little boys and girls and things, if they're doing shows, I go to see them. And I think, you know, this is a job that I've been given that has given me an opportunity to really, really help as many people as I can. And I honestly love people. I get so excited. Like, you know, when we were recording yesterday, and I'm so energetic, and I said, it's just that people really make me happy. I'm like a dog. I start wagging my tail as soon as I see people. You know, and it is wonderful to give the love that we receive from them. They're absolutely, you know, they're the best fans in the whole wide world. You know, we're so lucky.
Absolutely.
I think it's a testament to this. If we are the best fans in the world, I think it's because we were given the best program, done by the best people, acted out by the best actors, written by the best writers, directed by the best people who could direct. And I think it's a testament to the longevity of the show. And speaking of people who make a difference, Katy, I hate to do this. We're on a hard break. We'll be right back. We're going to our sponsors over here, the people who pay our bills to make sure the show keeps going. When we return, more talk with the lovely, talented, wonderful. There's not many adjectives. There's a billion adjectives, I should say, that describe this woman. I can't fit them all into the show. When we return to The Legend of the Traveling Tardis with Katy Manning.
Jackie Sonnenberg's My Soul to Keep is a ghost story rooted in the realities of actual cults. When 13-year-old Sky Monroe arrives at her new boarding school, all she can think about is death and connecting with the afterlife. Soon she discovers her school's spirituality group, the Guardians of Light. and they have a secret. They can speak with the dead, and the organization is a cult. But this isn't Sky's only problem. The campus house where Sky resides is haunted, and even the ghosts have an agenda. They intend on getting the souls they want. Filled with mystery and intrigue plucked straight from the headlines, author Jackie Sonnenberg's research and attention to detail give this ghost story an even more eerie atmosphere. Find My Soul to Keep on Amazon.com today.
I counted the fingers. Got it right. I was there. Okay, 1, 4, and then I thought, oh no, count backwards, you silly old.
Okay, for those of you who are watching us on the YouTube live chat, you are having an incredible time right now. I don't think you're having any problem. Yeah, what Katie's referring to is that Melanie does a countdown that we all see on the YouTube channel, on the Skype channel, and that's when we know we're going in. But Katie was kind enough to do an audio countdown the whole time. It was
I spent
beautiful.
too much time in television because when we were, they'd take my glasses away when we were doing, whenever I do television. And I can actually, when they do the countdown and then the hand goes down, I can actually hear the air being cut by the hand, if you know what I mean. Except once when I was doing a show that was live and I got it wrong and I thought they were giving me the wind-up signal. So I started to do this incredible wind-up. So thank you very much for joining us on that. And halfway through I went, hang on, I think that was just the extend. So I said, however, before we go, I had to. Yeah, it's amazing. Once again, I can actually hear the air. But there I counted and then I remembered I had to count backwards. Oh. Anyway, whatever the commercial was, I hope everybody was jolly well listening and they go out and support everything that has just been given in that little commercial.
Well, thank you, Katie. And for those of you just joining us on the show, this is the lovely, talented, and wonderful, and everything I can't even express on this show, Katy Manning. For some of you know her as the companion to Jon Pertwee's Third Doctor, as is it Joe Grant or Joe Jones, or where are we right now in your time?
No, I mean, am I Iris Wildtime? Am I
Wildtime? That's right.
Am I one of the 26 voices and not a well woman? I don't know. But yes, no, it's Joe Grant and then Joe Jones, because I do now audios as Joe Grant and Joe Jones, and of course Iris, who's still flying around the universe. I actually love playing Joe Jones. It's an absolute joy. Also, I don't have to stand on tippy toes and go back to being young Joe. I can kind of like relax a little.
Well, I was absolutely geeking out when I saw The Death of the Doctor, when you and Liz Sladen and Matt Smith, and what is it like going from John to coming back to Matt and having to play the character again? What was that transition like, and how was it with working with Matt and Liz?
Well, first of all, the heart of the Doctor goes through every single one of them.
Yes.
And every actor, the character is the same, but they all bring their own particular and sometimes peculiarly wonderful magic to the character. And that just delights me. So in a sort of strange way, it wasn't as difficult as one thought it was going to be. Yes, I was very used to working with John. I'd also had the privilege of Pat Troughton in The Three Doctors to see how he created his Doctor. And also, growing up, I had watched William Hartnell. But when it came to Matt, it was so exciting to see this incredible young actor his physicality was just astounding, his generosity. When we played that little scene, which was quite difficult, and it was actually quite emotional for me, that little scene where, she says, I waited and I watched, for that blue box to land and so on and so forth. And he said, just take your time and go wherever you want to go with it. And of course, I'm a person who lives very much in the now, and everybody who's been in my life is always in my heart, but I don't mourn loss because I've been touched by having those people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But for, you know, those little moments, I did flash back to being with my wonderful Jon, who we worked so closely. And as Liz said, it was quite hard taking over because Jon got so used to me. So Liz and I had become friends anyway, and we'd also both experienced working with Jon in very different ways. We both had very different experiences. And I said to her, you know, but how are these young kids going to suddenly see this, you know, wacky old bat coming back? You know, how are they going to react to, you know, my nickname became Granny Groove.
Hashtag it.
And I did something so stupid. I thought, you know, and that kind of actress, I think, okay, she's been doing all, changed herself to Robert Mugabe. She's, you know, been up the Yancey in a tea chest and all these things that she's done. And I thought, right. So I cut my own hair with a pair of nail scissors, right?
Uh-huh.
What?
Yeah, darling, I do that now.
Okay.
I can cut my hair while I'm talking to you, sweetie. I did educating Rita for 3 years.
She's probably doing it
I
right
know
now.
about haircuts. Anyway, I do. But I cut my own hair very, very short for that. And then it wasn't until I went up into the makeup caravan and Liz was there, and they were brushing out her beautiful chestnut locks. And I thought, what the hell have I done? I'm sitting there with this little jagged haircut, but I just felt it was very Joe. And rather than coming back and looking like I'd been to the hairdressers every week, you know, I thought it was absolutely right. But just that moment of Katy looking at Liz's gorgeous gut, and I'm like, I don't know why I did that, Liz. But she was really supportive and said, you know, and it was very much, you know, you just rehearse, shoot. It was not that different to how it was before, and you do the filming first. And then we're running across this planet, and I looked at Matt and I said, how does it feel running across another planet with two pensioners? And then he had the audacity when people were saying what it was like working with Katy. He said, she's as mad as a box of frogs. I said, obviously, they've never worked with Matt. And because he's beautifully bonkers too.
Oh, he is. He is.
Exactly. Thank you, darling.
Yeah, he is. Once he gets to know you, because
Yes.
he's quite shy, I think. But once he gets to know you, he's very cheeky, and he's got a twinkle in his eye.
Oh, there was a lot of twinkling going on.
And what I appreciated with the scenes I did with him, he stood in to do the reverse. So when people see pictures of his shoulder, that is Matt Smith, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Until when I was trying to be very serious, he just gave a little twinkle in his eye to make me laugh.
Well, he knew that a twinkle in the eye wasn't going to work with this blind old bat. Colin Baker learnt that on stage too, when he would be doing something to try and make me laugh, and it didn't take, you know, trying to pour his sherry into his ear, things like that. And of course, it didn't take long before he realised that's not going to get a laugh out of Katy because she can't even see you're there. But no, he was an extraordinarily generous and wonderful young actor to work with and to watch. And I said to him, you know, in one of my more serious moments, I said that, you know, Jon Pertwee would be so proud of the way that you're playing this character. It's an absolute delight and a delight. And of course, Liz and I had such a wonderful time together. And, you know, I knew that she wasn't well, of course. And so we had good time together, you know, and the two characters were so perfect to put together. And you couldn't ask for a better person to have written it than Russell T Davies. I mean, you know, he understands, you know, because people had said, oh, you know, what was it? Somebody had written a book and said that Joe was now divorced and living alone in a cottage. Well, hello, if you ever saw how Joe Grant was played, you would have known that woman would have never ended up divorced and living in a cottage on her own. No. And so it was lovely. And it also has given, I'm so grateful because my character now comes back on audio.
Mm-hmm. I was literally going to ask you, Katy, when you came back with Big Finish, did you approach Jo Jones a little more differently, or you just knew that she grew and then that she evolved a little bit, but still had that vivaciousness?
I know her, darling. I know the woman. I played her from her being young, and I played her right through to now, and I know. And I spend, obviously Stuart Bevan is still a dear and very, very close friend of mine. And I just know Jo. And I know, when you're doing these audios, as Simon would know, there might be certain bits that are written that aren't quite, you've always got to keep the heart of the character. And sometimes they're slightly missed. And of course, everybody knows, don't worry, Katy, will go right back to where the heart is and what that person would really say. So it was wonderful. And working with the new unit and, working with all the characters now, that are now part of new unit was wonderful and absolutely joyous. And I think Osgood and Jo were just a joy together, because they're both so slightly wacky. And then, of course, coming back into Torchwood, which was something. I'd also been in Torchwood before, only I played a great big cockroach that ate all her own species. And so she was looking for a new planet to inhabit because she'd eaten all her own people. And at one point, she says, and you know what? They needed salt. And
bitter on top of it.
So it was really nice to get back to work with John Barrowman and to actually bring Jo into play. And I think once again, those two characters work beautifully together. I think she's quite good, Jo. I think you can kind of take her everywhere. She sort of travels well.
Our group actually did a review of the Big Finish of Green Life, and I mean, it was just absolutely delightful the way that that you and John Barrowman just played off each other, because the Jo and Jack characters just complemented one another, and just that go get 'em, that it was delightful. It was
we had a ball actually doing that, and of course you know who was playing Boss, don't you?
I remember listening to the interview afterwards.
Stuart Bevan.
Yes.
Who was in fact Professor Cliff Jones, which I thought was a delightful irony, and he played it beautifully.
Well, I think one of the things that we commented the most and we enjoyed is that Jo and Captain Jack both have core values that conflict with each other. Yes. But we got to see them working it out during that, and I thought it was just beautifully written because it was going into a character development between two characters that have been developed but were on opposite sides of the poles, but were willing to work together for each other to just save the planet like they usually did because they were influenced by the Doctor. And that was something that they had to come out.
Well, don't we wish that would continue into our real world, darling, where everybody is prepared to work together for the good of the planet, as opposed to their individual greed or egotistical ways?
Absolutely. I'll send the green light up to Congress and see how, how that plays out.
That's all I'm going to say there. Don't worry, Simon.
It's refreshing to hear another actor able to speak her mind about something which some people can be considered controversial. It's nice that you are brave enough to do that.
Well, I think politics is controversial, but I don't believe our planet should be controversial.
No, absolutely.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it there. I won't go any further. But I don't believe that keeping our planet and stopping all the smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
That stopping this from happening. That's all I care about. I couldn't care less about politics.
No.
So it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, if we could just step back just a moment. I've done a couple of big finishes, and my very first one was with you in an Iris Wildtime story.
I remember it well.
Playing a psychotic elevator, which apparently Gary Russell.
Casting?
So yeah. Gary Russell said it was perfect for me. So, but
It was too. You were wonderful.
But for me, it was another example that I'd set. I sort of set an aim of what I want to do. I would love to do a big finish, and especially with the older cast. Because they were my childhood, and so I got to work with you and David Yip. I remember watching The Chinese Detective, so it was very exciting. But you were so kind to me, because I was, although I might not have shown it, I was quaking my boots initially. But once we got going,
never ever do that with anything that. I mean, if you'd seen us all yesterday, and of course you're saying now working with your childhood heroes in Doctor, or
Yes.
people that you watched.
Yeah.
I now, can you imagine, I'm standing in the studio with the wonderful Tim Trelaw, who once he got me out of a toilet in which I was locked, I said to him, now you're my doctor. And he helps me in a lot of ways. He does a lot of things. We just had that wonderful rapport that John and I kind of had. And then, of course, now we've brought in John Colshaw as the Brigadier. And it's and I'm standing in this studio and I'm thinking, this is sort of moments when I actually would get little goosebumps, because like these people who are no longer here were right there in that room. It's really extraordinary. I mean, because when we first started doing the audios for Joe, I was playing everybody. And then there was one where I was doing Iris, I was doing John, I was doing the Brig, I was doing every incidental soldier. And so it's a joy now to have this. And Tim has just grown and grown, and working with, Nick Briggs, who has such passion and understanding for that era, and yesterday, I have to tell you, I was crying with laughter. And the love that we used to have making that with John and everything, that is the core of making it now. That love in the studio, that warmth, that laughter, that joy, that's that little subliminal thing that really makes those audios work. That's what you have to have. And I think with Iris too, Simon, there has to be that love and the cast all working and having a wonderful time.
It was a fantastic time there, so and a fond memory.
Well, I hope you come back and do some more, darling. If not, come and join us in some of the the new Doctors with Tim Trelaw.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
you'd be very welcome, and we're very naughty.
Well, as you know,
David looked at me yesterday and he said, "You are a very naughty girl." But I did do the washing up.
Yeah.
Speaking of naughty,
as you know, it's the powers that be that make the decisions who they call in. So I just need to hand out a few more oranges at Christmas, perhaps.
Well, I'll just keep saying your name. I'll just keep saying, Simon. Yeah. Oh, Mercia.
That's one way of saying. I think that's a translation from Katie saying we are on a hard break. When we return to naughty, because I have no way of transitioning right now.
I only saw the middle bit, darling.
Just a little bit. Well, let's have more discussion with our guest, Katy Manning, when we return to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis. Stay tuned and become part of the legend.
It's Germany, 1938. Charlotte is a 15-year-old girl living in the Jewish quarter. George lives in the city proper and enamored by Charlotte's charm and grace when she wanders into his cobbler shop. George decides right then and there that he is going to marry her. Follow along as this unlikely couple struggles to stay one step ahead of the Gestapo and their dramatic escape from Nazi Germany. Good things always happen in springtime, from author Joanne Fisher, on Amazon.com today.
Alien invaders enslave Earth,
unleashing hunters into the ruined wastes.
One young survivor struggles to elude their monsters, clinging to hope.
When he's stolen off the planet by a sarcastic Starship AI, they pit their uneasy alliance against a treacherous galaxy.
Explore a whole new verse of barbarism and betrayal
Wonder and Adventure
in the Scion series,
by Michael J. Allen.
beginning with Book 1, Scion Conquered Earth.
Available in print, ebook, and audio on Amazon.com.
Go!
No.
Well, you heard the lady. Welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis with our special guest, Katy Manning. Where go?
This run a bit more smoothly.
Yeah, that's how it works around here. I'm Christian Basel. I'm here with Simon Fisher-Becker, Brian Burress from Dr. Freedom.
It
the
is
Rat Hole.
you up there in that little tiny round bit, Christian.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. If I get really, really close, God, you'll be so pleased that this is not on visual right now because my hello, sweetie. I just kind of rub noses with you.
Oh, okay. Here we go. There we go. We're rubbing the nose there. There we go. Anyway, I'm here with Dr. Freedom's Brian Burress. I'm here with the Rat Hole's Dave Chapman, and I'm here with Artiste Melanie Dean, and we are continuing our discussion with Katy Manning. I think this is wonderful. I think this should be a 3-part episode at this point because I know Katy has a lot to say there. Skype
Well,
just
you know,
needs to
you
one
look
episode.
at Big Finish, and I mean, I did Dracula, I did some of two Dorian Grays where I played his sister, and one of the great joys, as I think Simon can attest, is the absolute joy of working with so many wonderful new young actors, as well as the good old staples. It's a constant learning, this business. What we were doing back then is not what we're doing now. And I always look at all these wonderful new young directors, new young actors, all these incredible. I just did a radio play the other day which was all a different way of approaching it. We shot it on location and so on. And they were all like 12 years old. But you have to remember, you're learning so much from these people. That means that as an older actress, I am not ever going to get left behind. I always want to stay right here in the O between the N and the W. And by seeing all this extraordinary young talent around me, and why I say yes to, I'll tell you something in a minute about that, but yes to a lot of little films with new young directors and writers and things, is because I feel like I'm sort of the grandma now of the future, and to see that a business which, as like Simon, I have loved and been passionate about for 50 years, going into the hands of these new young people is so exciting and makes me so happy to know that that's where it's going.
Yes, I agree with you, Katy. It is a privilege. But sometimes, especially with students, I think they're too afraid to direct because they seem to accept whatever I do, whereas I am a director that has no problem with actually being directed.
Yeah, but you just tell them that, because I mean,
yeah.
I've directed musicals, I've directed plays, but I always say to them, listen, sweetie, I want you, this is your film.
Yes.
I want you to tell me and just look at me and say, Manning, that was rubbish. Yes. Or, Katy, that was really lovely, but I think it would be better if. I think you have to be very clear that you are not going to be in any way upset when somebody is sharing what they want. And then you can have, it's working as a team. And you say, and if I think maybe I can do it better this way, I will show you. And then see what you have to say. So I think we just have to be very open straight away. But I just said, I was just offered a film and they offered me this character and I'd said no to them before, right? And I said, I want to do something more interesting. So they came back about 6 months later and they said, is this more interesting? I kind of, and I said, but if you were, and I said to my agent, okay, I'm going to write an email and you send it to them. And I said, if I could play like a one-eyed bag lady with a 3-legged dog that sits on a park bench, swearing at pigeons and passers-by, with mangled hair and blacked out teeth. I said, you don't have to give me a script. Just pass by subliminally with a camera and I'm happy. Just leave it at that. I'm not asking for more. So I got this email back saying, my God, I haven't been this excited since my wife proposed to me. Would you really do that? And I thought, well, yes, that's what I do. I don't want to just carry on and go into a business and just be a sort of glamorous old granny. That's kind of... So anyway, in the end, they ended up by saying, do you want to play both parts? It's a question
because you always do play all the parts.
Yes, I was going to say, I don't know how to play. That's why I had twins, darling. I can't even handle one child. But you know what I'm saying, don't you, Simon? Sometimes you have to say, I would do this, and they don't think. Just because I walk around looking reasonably elegant and do love a pair of red stilettos, darling, does not mean that's who the actress is. Mm-hmm. Because Simon knows, and a lot of young people don't know the word character.
Yes.
And when I left Doctor Who, the first thing I did was play a junkie. And then a lesbian in a true court case. So, I was already a character actress back then. And, it's something we love to do because it's so much more exciting. And on audio, of course, it's great because you get to do all those different characters. Well, you can usually make them physical as well, except when you're playing children and things. No. But yeah, it's absolutely joyous to get those kind of characters. So,
you've done a lot of stage work. You mentioned, you've written, you've directed, you've done all of these things. You mentioned earlier you wrote a play kind of about your experiences with your vision. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I'm an old theater person myself, so I'd love to hear more.
Well, it was called Not a Well Woman, and it was it's now being recorded for Big Finish. Because I wrote it in America and I did 2 performances in America. It's about 26 characters. And when I multi-voice, I don't do one voice, then another voice. I do them all interrupting each other. So you somebody says, how do you do that? I said, well, you have to be completely insane for a start. That's where you begin with that.
Isn't that
because I'd also done it on, but I'd done it on stage with the Betty Davis, Me and Jezebel, where I played everybody, Betty and everybody else. And when I recorded it, Nick Briggs decided he wanted to direct it. And I don't do page numbers because I don't believe in all this chronological order. I wrote a play that if you've got the first page and the last page, you can throw the rest up in the air and it doesn't matter where you come in on it. And it was all tied together with music. And what it is, it's looking at just touching on it lightly, it's looking at visual situation. How does it change your sort of philosophy? Like if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, I can't be frightened because I don't know how far there is to fall. So it makes you quite brave because you don't see, like somebody will say to me, oh, I don't like the look of that person coming towards us in Central Park. And I'm just smiling away. So usually anybody who's a bit irky-perky looks at me and thinks that woman's madder than I am. I think I'll just avoid her, because I don't feel, I don't see things in the same way, and I smile hugely at everybody on the tube and things like that. So, which often starts a conversation because people feel comfortable. It's just having, and so it's looking at how you live your life, with that being sort of the philosophy of not carrying around the normal type of fears that people have with them about doing things. And that's just a little bit of it, and how the particular character who I write it around, Pansy Maud, and she's very much a woman who lives absolutely in the now, which a lot of people can't do, because they're either, we have a past and you take what you need and you move onwards. You don't want to carry too much heavy luggage around with you, it gets a little weighty. And then a lot of people, where the real problem begins is spending too much time projecting into the future which we don't have. So if you're having a bad day and you project into the future, you're going to be projecting into a very negative future. Everything's going to look like it's rubbish. So therefore, eventually you're going to depress yourself. And you look at the hours we spend thinking about, well, when I get to the airport, you know, this is going to happen and that. You don't know. And so living in the now is a really important place for us to be, to fully experience life and to enjoy it moment to moment. But it's not easy, but that's where we should be. And I think J.M. Barrie says it beautifully. It's living in the O between the N and the W.
Speaking of different doctors.
That didn't answer your question at all, did it, darling? Go out and listen to it.
No, but I listened to it and it was nice.
Oh, I did write the dirty rap in it. I was making a lampshade for my daughter with beautiful roses on it, and we didn't want to pay the rights for a rap song, but it had to be really, really dirty. So I sat down and I wrote a gangster rapper song. I'll only give you the first line. Riding in me homies in me boom ya car, heading for a pumping and a crunking at the Black Eyes bar, dropping me signs about the plight of the seal, smoking reefer deeper and keeping it real, yo ho ho. Anyway, so it gets worse. I mean, that's the clean bit. And so I sat there making this lampshade, and I thought, this is so bizarre. Here I am putting beautiful roses on a lampshade. And as I say, it's a very filthy rap song because it had to be. And then I had to write another little song called My Baby Boo. But I think the funniest thing of all was me in the studio actually doing the gangster rapper granny.
I want that.
Oh, Ercia.
Again, Katie's letting us know that we're back to a commercial break. When we return, our last segment with Katy Manning, the lovely, the wonderful, the talented, the beautiful Katy Manning. When we return, please continue to listen and become part of the legend.
Hello.
Now on Amazon.com, iCoin from author Jeremy Mosby. It's an alternate reality, and the leader of the planet iCoin is none other than Benjamin Franklin. When corrupt officials threaten not only iCoin but the Earth as well, an unlikely chosen one, Jeremy, must face dark foes to save the Earth and iCoin alike. Author Jeremy Mosby takes readers on a superhero's adventure through this compelling and imaginative alternate universe. Get iCoin on Amazon.com today.
Oh, wait, no, Katie. No, you're not going to introduce us on this one?
I just thought, am I talking too much?
No.
No, not really. I'm serious because I
I'm going to mute
forget.
my
and
mic. You speak for the next hour. That's the whole show. For all I care.
It's part of my myopia is I just keep talking.
And everything that you say is gold to me. So I'm enjoying every moment. I'm sure everybody out there
I
listening.
think Simon has just gone for a lie down.
You just put a cardboard cutout of himself.
I love you, Simon. You know that.
Let me bring things back to reality. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christian Basel.
Reality?
Yeah, well, this reality. I meant
What
in
the
our
hell is that?
Okay, welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis. My name is Christian Basel, host of this show. I'm with Melanie Dean. I'm with Simon Fisher-Becker. I'm with Brian Burress. I'm with Dave Chapman and the lovely Katy Manning. We welcome back everybody. Brian, I know you've been sitting in the corner and chopping at the bit, wanting to ask your questions. Ask away there, sir, for Miss Manning.
Well, knowing Jo Jones now as well as you have played her over the years, the one question I had written down is, you've interacted with the second Doctor, the third Doctor, many others. How do you think that if you were writing it, that Jo Jones would react to meeting Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor?
Oh, darling, she'd just hug her and love her. Jo is a mother. She's a woman that has 7 children and 13 grandchildren, and she was always motherly even when she was young. She was often quite a misunderstood character, and now people are beginning to get her. They suddenly go, wait a minute, she was not. She also was, she was the first girl to actually offer her own life for the Doctor. And I think that says all you need to know about a character. And, but, as she was when she met the new unit, and she said, you guys just need to hug a lot more. She's a very motherly, warm, affectionate, she calls everybody, sweetie. She's that woman. And I think that she would do really well. It would be like Jodie having Granny on board. And, and I think Jodie would react well to that, because her character needs a little love. And Jo would be there. Oh, darling, she'd be giving it to them in buckets. I mean, she was even nice sometimes to some very unpleasant creatures. I mean, the Ogrons, she tried to feed them. I mean, the bananas and so.
Well, I think I know you're going with this, because I think this is a love of things that Jo was projecting when she first started. When you were referring to the motherly, I see Jo as somewhat of an echo to David Tennant, who sees things and loves things. It could be a blob, an alien that's a blob of snot. And Jo would just look at it and go, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful creature. Where are you from? Tell me what you do." I think she had that. She saw everything in life, and tell me if I'm wrong. For the beauty of it.
I
Only until the ugliness came out is when she
Yes.
saw the heart of it. But she loved everything. Didn't matter
I
what.
think she learned that from her doctor too, because he was a great lover and of peace and, of not judging. And I think that's also very important, just because something comes from another planet, and looks a little different, we should not judge it. I think that also takes me back to when Jon Pertwee was kept on Earth. And I always thought that was kind of fascinating, because if you go to another planet, you expect to see something possibly who looks a little different to us. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not just with makeup. I often wonder on other planets why, they've just got heavily applied makeup. But so it was quite interesting when you had, say, something like The Terror of the Autons, which was actually very frightening for children. You had a perfectly normal piece of furniture, which was very fashionable then, which was a blow-up black plastic chair that ate people. It ate poor Harry Taub. And then, you had policemen that ripped their faces off, and then there was an auton underneath, and this was all going on, and shopping centres, and all sorts of things like that. And I think sometimes that's actually more frightening, because we are a little more afraid when something unknown sort of invades our space on this planet. I think that she learned a lot, and that was a lovely thing. I think Jo grew up over the 3 years that she was in it, and you were able to watch her grow up, and you were able to see that taking your A levels doesn't say how smart you are. Mm-hmm. Learning and listening and being open to all sorts of possibilities is a sign of intelligence, I think.
Well, I think you even went deeper with Jo, because she was somebody who didn't see things the way that I guess, for better term, society didn't see it. She, like I said, that example of the blob on the ground, people would just go, "Ew, disgusting, don't touch it, it's gross." But for people to step back into Jo's world and just look at it for what it is, and maybe there's something beautiful about it that you don't understand. And I think that's, we were talking about taking the green life to Congress, that might be something that people,
well, we should we need to do that with each other. And
exactly
this day and age where everybody, you got to have this, you got to have a little nose, you got to have that, you got to and everybody, every single person has their own beauty, and we need to recognize that, and we've got to stop all this judgmental business that seems to be so rife now. You sending me a letter, Simon?
Oh, I send you a love letter every morning.
There you go.
And I return it, darling. But the other thing is, I did one where Jo was in the prison, and my goodness, don't mess with her. She came in there and she whacking all these prisoners and grabbing guns, and she also was quite gung-ho when needs to be, and she was very, very, very good at acting out escapes. And the master only got her once. And after, no, I can't tell you. Anyway, it's terrible when you go to say something. Oh no, I can't say that. Yes.
Katy, actually, we are coming up to the portion of the show which I dread, especially when we're having a great time. We're coming to the end of the show. I want to give you a chance to plug out anything that is coming up. I know you have Big Finish coming up a great deal that you just mentioned. Do you have any stage work, anything that's coming up?
No, I'm currently not doing theatre.
Okay.
No, until something so extraordinary comes up, I've lost my passion for the stage.
Really?
Which is really weird. I started in television.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always been my first love. Television and film is really very much my first love. And after years and years and years of theatre, unless I was offered a play that absolutely blew me away, I have no desire to go on stage. I've sort of lost my nerve. It's very strange. But, certain things happen and it goes, it's gone. Doesn't mean it won't come back, but temporarily it's gone. And I'm wanting to be, and I've just done several things on film. That's my first, and I realize now that possibly is still my first love. I really do enjoy it, and it's where I learned so much and from so many wonderful people. And I'm really looking forward to coming over to Long Island. And I love to sit around Long Island with a nice tea. And it's beautiful, like a peach tea. I'm a happy woman.
All my family's in Long Island, so I'm just loving
I'm
this.
so sorry.
No, you're fine. Oh, darling, you're fine. It's okay.
I know, sweetie, we got it. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to that, because once again, I think Simon will back me up here. The American fans they just are the most delightful, all around the world they are. And we know that we go out to what, is it 100 countries now, Simon?
It must be, at least.
I think it is.
It's amazing, actually, where some of the fan mail comes from.
Oh, I know. I mean, South America, and and I've got Russian fans who come over to England and bring you all these wonderful Russian chocolates and things. It's very exciting. But there's something, obviously my family live in America and I have huge ties with America, and I spent a lot of my life living there. But there is something so very wonderful about the American fans. They are so warm, so welcoming, and it's a joy. I just can't wait to be over there and see everybody again. And I'm just going to hug for days and days and days of hugging. Wrap it up, Katy. Just wrap it up, girl. And thank you. Oh, thank you. You are the most delightful people. I truthfully don't like doing these things, but you make me want to do it. Thank you so much. And Simon, what an added little treat you are. And Christian, I just came back to you because I liked you so much last time.
Oh, thank you.
And you guys are wonderful. And I would honestly, there's lots of scugging going on from this end now.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping it up with this episode of The Legend of the Traveling Tardis. We want to thank our panelists, Simon Fisher-Becker, Dave Chapman, Brian Burress, and Melanie Dean. Check them all out on their Facebook pages. Brian Burress, Dr. Freedom on YouTube. Dave Chapman, you can check him out. Where you can check you out?
rathole.ca on pretty much everything.
Gotcha. And Mr. Simon Fisher-Becker, check him out. Of all of his work he's done, including Dorian Moldovar, and of course, the lovely and talented Katy Manning. Check her out on Big Finish. Believe me, you've got a lot of work to do if you're just getting started with Katy Manning. A lot of work to do. Katy, we can't wait to see you in the States. You are getting a picture of that TARDIS, whether it kills me or not. If I have to drive up there and do it, I'll do it myself. But
Darling,
thank
we'll
you so
meet
much for coming
halfway.
on.
I'll get a bus.
You got it.
I'll be
One
And thank
thing
you.
I gotta add, though, If
Go
you
for
are not following this lovely lady on Twitter, please do
Yes.
so.
Yes.
It is
It's
an
a happy
amazing adventure.
Thank
And we
you
have to
so
specify
much.
Twitter. Just don't follow her. Just don't,
You can follow me. I didn't
you
know
might
you
get on
were
the wrong
there.
bus. And you have to go on the wrong places. And go, Miss Manning, where are you going? I'm like, not in the place you were going.
If you
And
can keep up with me, darling, you can follow me.
you got that. Folks, and thank you all for listening to us at the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. Please keep listening to us wherever you listen to us, and always be part of the legend.